could energy meditation be perilous? Well, the first reason is that when we use energy work to change how we feel, we are indulging our yang tendencies. Now, yang literally means man. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for our tendencies to be rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. When we do so, we might, in the short term, attain some low level goals. But in the long term, almost lofty goals of peace and fulfillment will forever be out of reach. When we are forever trying to tinker with our circumstance, trying to get it just so, we wind up painting ourselves into a corner. Like a bird in a gilded cage, wherein the cage is rather lovely, it's still a cage. And when we paint ourselves into a corner, we train ourselves to only be able to function when things are just so, which means 99% of the time we're up shit's creek without a paddle. 99% of the time we won't be able to cope. We won't be able to find peace. We won't be able to access the resourcefulness that helps us to practice love, the highest love, which is spontaneous and uncontrived. None of us are putting the effort and the time into meditation to fall into that trap. What we want is to embrace our yin tendencies, to be flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. So I'm going to say something glib, and hopefully I'll back it up. Don't remedy our circumstance, accept our circumstance. Now you can say, dude, that's appalling. What's going on? Where people are supposed to accept that they're being pushed out of affordable housing, they're being pushed into homelessness, they're being pushed into starvation, they're being pushed to work more hours than FDR ever dreamt. When FDR devised the minimum wage, it was so that, and this is a very sexist worldview, that FDR wanted the minimum wage to allow one full-time worker to support a spouse and children and pay a mortgage, groceries, and incidentals, and an annual vacation. That type of lifestyle was what minimum wage was always intended to be before it began enduring the death of 1,000 cuts. So are we supposed to just accept that? Are we supposed to accept that there are abusers and rapists and murderers, that there are individuals who do that there are countries who do that there are individuals who are exploited and murdered, that there are entire countries that are going through genocide right now? Are we supposed to just accept that? No, but we're supposed to work with it in a way that will preserve our sanity and help us to become the solution and not just that which compounds the problem. But how does that work? May I suggest to you that we begin with Nagarjuna's two truths. Many, many centuries ago, Nagarjuna was a South Indian Buddhist philosopher. You might call him a scholar. And he popularized the idea of the two truths. You see, a lot of people were getting just fixated on emptiness. They were mystifying emptiness. They were refusing to explore emptiness as a metaphor, and instead of pretending it was a literal thing. And they were exhausting themselves, forcing themselves to superstitiously believe and to pseudo-intellectually prove these things that the Buddha had never taught or intended. And Nagarjuna, bless his heart, worked his best to kind of straighten things out and to say, hey guys, we need both the conventional and the ultimate. We need that. We need the perception that is tied to our inhalation and helps us to viscerally understand samsara, to viscerally perceive the world around us with the utmost of in a manner that is vulnerable and passive and visceral and even random. For those intoxicated on yang, the idea of doing anything random is horrifying, because if you're in yang and you're rigid and you're controlling, you're probably going to be perfectionistic and obsessively organized. I've never met anybody who was peaceful and perfectionistic at the same time. But wait, there's more. Nagarjuna also suggested that just as inhalation's perception is important, likewise exhalation's relaxation is important. That when we relax, we viscerally release, and that is the experience of nirvana. And the irony is that samsara and nirvana are as close as each cycle of breath. And to put a finer point on it, in the terms of accepting things, let's put it in perspective of the 5 elements. Now, 5 elements is an Iron Age concept. We're living in the Silicon Age, where we have elements in the triple digits at this point. But without indulging intellectual snobbery, the idea is this. As we go through life, some things, as we breathe in, can feel spacious. And as we relax into exhalation, those same things could feel non-graspable. Some experiences are dynamic, but as we relax, they become void. As we breathe in, some things are warm, and yet as we exhale, they could feel non-graspable. As we inhale, some things could feel quite solid, and yet as we exhale, they could feel rather non-graspable. As we inhale, some things could feel rather wet, and yet as we exhale, those exact same things could feel as if they were as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. And so we're not saying these things don't exist. We're saying as we inhale, we experience, as we exhale, we release. Both are valid. For just as a bird requires both its wings to take to the skies, likewise, we need both perception and release, not only to become a Buddha, but just to thrive, just to exist. We cannot only exhale if we only exhale without inhaling, we will run out of air, turn blue, tip over, wiggle funny, and scare the poor dog. Nobody wants that. We're invited to play with the present moment, warts and all, imperfections and all. Playing with the present moment, warts and all, sounds like a euphemism for unsafe sexual choices, but I assure you it's not. Playing with the present moment means that we're not always going to get what we want when we want it, for as long as we want it. Life is messy. Sometimes it swings like a pendulum from the glorious to the grotesque, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, and once again, from the glorious to the grotesque. Any fool can understand a modicum of peace the moment they get what they want, when they want it, for as long as they want it. But, like a Waterford crystal wine flute, shattering as upon impact with a hardwood floor, their peace is destroyed by the realities of life. If we want to be grown-ups, if we want to be happy, healthy, and well-adjusted, we must use the Buddhist methods in a manner that helps us cope with the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. This is summarized many centuries ago by the founder of Dzogchen, known in the Swat Valley as Prahe Vajra, known in Tibet as by the same person as Garab Dorje. And in the 4th verse of his treatise, he wrote, "The great elements, or the Bhagavan, that exists by nature in all things." This is, of course, shorthand. In the culture in which this was written, Buddhist Tantra was very popular. And people use the metaphor of a yadam, the metaphor of a Buddhist archetype, and that archetype's paradise, and that archetype's voice, and that archetype's mind, as to illustrate what I mentioned a few moments ago about that those four things could be, you could have circumstances could be appearing yet void, bodies could be sensual yet void, our communication could be resounding yet void, our minds could be lucid yet void. So this duality between the conventional and the ultimate is what is referred to in this passage. But it continues. However wrongly it may be conceived, liberation originates from oneself and not elsewhere. No matter how far up our tuchus our head might be, we can still, like a cat with his head stuck in a bag of Doritos, we can back our way out using the simple method of noticing and releasing, whose nuts and bolts we'll explore in just a few minutes. We can experience liberation without trying to control our circumstances or our bodies or our relationships or our mind. I've never met a happy control freak. How about you? I've met some wealthy, powerful control freaks, but none who are peaceful, none who are happy. By putting our controlling tendencies on hold, just setting them on the shelf, we don't even have to forsake them, and playing with the following method of noticing and releasing, we can experience liberation from the tyranny of our destructive impulses. So before we begin before we review the meditation instructions, let's break for 40 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. I've spent more than 8 hours a day for more than 30 years studying, practicing, and then reverse engineering all the teachings and techniques of each school of Buddhism so that you would not have to. I play the Yoda to your Luke Skywalker so that you can quickly and easily become the person that your dog already thinks you are. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. And now, it's been my experience that just as to a sprinter, the sound of a starter's pistol and the sight of the finish line could have a profound effect. Similarly, I found that even though recitations are not necessary, I found that two short little love recitations in the beginning of meditation and two short love recitations at the end of meditation give people a sense of closure, give people a sense of structure, and that's fine. Instead of praying to real or imaginary celestial entities, we're using words just to exercise the neural pathways responsible for empathy and enthusiasm, also known as bodhicitta and refuge. Or I guess I would have been more skillful to say empathetic bodhicitta and enthusiastic refuge. Perhaps I will remember that in the future. Anywho, our first recitation is rather literal, and we're setting it to a triplet chant together. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on thee, Buddha's example, instructions, and students. So these three highlighted words are so useful. They've earned the metaphoric nickname of the three wish-fulfilling jewels. We come to the final pre-meditation chant. This recitation is more concise and it's more figurative because we're human. As humans, we are wired to think symbolically. We're going to set this recitation to the bookend chant. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. So quick like a bunny, let's review mindfulness and meditation, which are known by many names, such as Satipassaddhi, Zen, Proto-Zen, Chan-Dhyana, Mahamudra, Mahasandhi, Ati Yoga, Dzogchen, and Treksho. Despite despite the elitists, the basic technique is universal, regardless of which terminology we might use. So let's keep it simple. Let's begin with mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we're accessing our sympathetic nervous system, which is so ancient. Actually, it predates the brain itself and is found in our spinal cord, specifically in the thoracic region that correlates with our rib cage. It's so wired. It is wired in a manner that does not support active concentration, but does support that does support us in our efforts to simply perceive, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. This is illustrated in Inhalation's 12-syllable recitation, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. Yes, there are boobs who will insist that the monkey mind is a bad thing, but it's a thing, and it's there. So what are some of the antics of mind? Well, through the use of its ancillary organs, mind is able to see, hear, feel, taste, smell, and the like. Internally, mind is able to emote, intend, reason, recall, and imagine. Well, you might understandably ask, what are we supposed to do with all this stuff that we notice? Well, that brings us to meditation. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are accessing our parasympathetic nervous system. It too is ensconced within the spinal cord, but this time at the bottom near in the lumbar region, at the tippy top in the cervical region. It's wired to help us to both physically relax as well as mentally release. And it's best illustrated by the 12-syllable phrase, relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. Now, it is not our job to rigidly believe in a literal non-graspability. It is not our job to pseudo-intellectually try to prove a literal non-graspability. Way back in the 4th grade, we should have learned about figurative language, that not everything is literal. Some things are similes, some things are metaphors, some things are hyperbolic. So think of it this way. Every time we relax in harmony with our exhalation, whatever we perceive during our previous inhalation could now feel as if it was as non-graspable as the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless day. So there you are outside looking at the blue sky, and you're reaching into the sky with both hands, fingers splayed, and you clutch at the blue sky, and you draw your hands back to your face, and you open your hands, and you've never seen blue in your hands. Our sky is literally non-graspable for those upon the turf. This is the seed of all the Buddhist metaphors, the popular ones, such as birthlessness, deathlessness, selflessness, emptiness. They're all metaphors. And when we stop listening to poop heads and just practice in a trenchant, visceral way with the wisdom of a 4th grader, we can master the Buddha's path in as little as a week. Now it's time to practice. So let us begin. So together as a team, Let us meditate as transformatively as Obi-Wan Kenobi upon the toasty sands of Tatooine under the guidance of the Force Ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn. As children, our primary caregiver probably bolted training wheels upon our bicycle so that we would not plummet 24 inches to our doom. We're going to start the same way. We're going to start off with 12-syllable training wheels. As we breathe in, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. As we breathe out, relaxing in mind's non-graspable nature. Let us remove one of the two training wheels as we transition from a 12-syllable exercise down to a three-syllable exercise. As we inhale, we can silently and mentally recite "notice this," and as we exhale, we can silently and mentally recite "relaxing." Let us remove the final of two imaginary or metaphoric training wheels and graduate to the one-syllable exercise. As we inhale, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun "this." As we exhale, we could silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic verb ease, which functions as a synonym for the verb relax. And we've had to use some poetic license. Instead of referring to physical sensation, we refer to form. Instead of referring to emotion, we refer to feel. Instead of referring to recollection, we use the preposition then. And instead of using the verb imagine, we replace it with the metaphoric simile dream. Now, our job is not to get neurotic about finding the perfect label. Our job is to notice and release. However, sometimes the present moment experience could feel like the schoolyard bully shaking us by our lapels like a French au pair. So when that happens, we can label the present moment experience. It doesn't make it go away, but it harnesses the momentum to turn the shafts and wheels and cogs of the metaphoric enlightenment machine. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. I check for questions approximately once every 8 or 9 minutes. If you find yourself engaging in a flight of fancy, as you breathe in, you could use the label dream, and as you exhale, you could use the verb ease. If you enjoy a light show, if you are observing a bit of a light show behind your eyelids, that could be sea ease. When you begin to notice the ambient sounds in your environment, that could be hear ease. When you begin to feel the sensations in your body, that could be form ease. Remember, as we breathe in, our perceptions are random. We do not have an agenda. We do not have a laundry list. By noticing and releasing our desires, we allow them to manifest. By noticing and releasing our dreads, we sidestep them. For this mindfulness and meditation manifests the centered spontaneity that, when we allow it to govern our choices, utterances, and deeds, can make of our life a paradise. Perhaps that is why the late Thich Nhat Hanh insisted that the Pure Land is now or never. When you catch yourself engaging in an imaginary conversation, that could be think ease. You've just joined this live stream. Welcome aboard. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or Buddhist philosophy or how to apply them to your life, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. I check for questions about once every 8 or 9 minutes. But here, this might help you get you started. As you breathe in, you can silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. For every time we breathe in, we are wired to perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Every time you exhale, you could silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic verb ease. For every time we exhale, we are wired to physically relax and mentally release. And so all we're doing in meditation and mindfulness is getting out of our own way and aligning our intention with the factory installed wiring of our autonomic nervous system. Whoops. Oh, Marshal Lama, please come to this crown. A infallible constant protector who knows a lot of things. Oh, Marshal Lama, please come to this crown. A infallible constant protector who knows a lot of things. Oh, Marshal Lama, please come to this crown. Oh, infallible constant protector who knows all that of things. It is extremely difficult to find such freedom and opportunities as we have. It is extremely difficult to find such freedom and opportunities as we have. It is extremely difficult to find such freedom and opportunities as we have. Being impermanent, everyone who was born will die. Being impermanent, everyone who was born will die. Being impermanent, everyone who was born will die. The results of our virtuous and harmful actions are inevitable. The results of our virtuous and harmful actions are inevitable. The results of our virtuous and harmful actions are inevitable. Interdependence is the key to benefiting others with our kindness. Understanding stress is the key to compassion. The three realms we experience as samsara are like an ocean of suffering. The three realms we experience as samsara are like an ocean of suffering. The three realms we experience as samsara are like an ocean of suffering. Remembering this made my mind turn toward Dharma. From now until I reach a very heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in the Lama who embodies the three jewels. From now until I reach a very heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in the Lama who embodies the three jewels. From now until I reach a very heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in the Lama who embodies the three jewels. From now until samsara is emptied, may I bring about benefit and happiness for all beings who have been my mothers. From now until samsara is emptied, may I bring about benefit and happiness for all beings, for they who have been my mothers. From now until samsara is emptied, may I bring about benefit and happiness for all beings who have been my mothers. From now until samsara is emptied, may I bring about benefit and happiness for all beings as if they have been my mothers. To perfect the two accumulations, I offer the body's wealth and splendor of all my lives to the three jewels. To perfect the two accumulations, I offer the body's wealth and splendor of all my lives to the three jewels. To perfect the two accumulations, I offer the body's wealth and splendor of all my lives to the three jewels. I pray to the protector, Amitabha, bless me that I may master the profound path of Pawam. I pray to the protector, Amitabha, bless me that I may master the profound path of Pawam. I pray to the protector, Amitabha, bless me that I may master the profound path of Pawam. I now give my body, wealth, and virtuous qualities wholeheartedly to all beings, for they have each been my mothers. I now give my body wealth and virtuous qualities wholeheartedly to all beings, for they have each been my kind mothers. I now give my body wealth and virtuous qualities wholeheartedly to all beings, for they have each been my kind mothers. Let us seal this morning's practice with a bit of the old well wishes. Without hindrance may I ensure enormous benefit for all beings. Without hindrance may I ensure enormous benefit for all beings. Without hindrance may I ensure enormous benefit for all beings. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. There we go. You could even help support this channel if you so desire. In approximately 10.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. It looks like I have a very interesting spelling of the word meditation, don't I? And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.